जय गोपीचन वल्लभा गिरिवरदारी यशोदनन्दन व्रज यशोदनन्दन यमुनतीरा वनचारु तीरा वनचारी जय रात माधवा कुंज विहारी जय रात माधवा कुंज विहारी जय गोपीचन वल्लभा गिरिवरदा जय गोपीचन वल्लभा गिरिवरदारी यशोदानंदन प्रजन रंजन यशोदानंदन प्रजन रंजन यमुनतीरा वनचारी यमुनतीरा वनचारी जय राघवाधवा कुंज विहारी हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे राम हरे राम राम हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम राम हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम हरे 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 कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम हरे हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम राम हरे हरे जय प्रभुपाद हम चक्रवर्ती चतुर्थ सदस्य से बहुत की जय। इस्कॉन संस्थापक श्री बहुत की जय। जय ओम विष्णुपाद परमहंस चतुर्थ सदस्य श्रीमद भक्ति सिद्धांत सरस्वती गोस्वामी प्रपात की जय। जय ओम विश्वास लखोर किशोर दास महाराज की जय। जय ओम विश्वास सच्चिदानंद शिल भक्ति विनोद ठाकुरा की जय। जय ओम विष्णुपाद वैष्णव सार्वभौम श्री जगन्नाथ दास महाराज की जय। जय श्री रूप सनातन भट्ट रघुनाथ श्री जीव गोपाल भट्टदास अविनाश गोस्वामी प्रभु की जय। ब्रह्मचर्य श्री हरिदास ठाकुर की जय। प्रेम से गो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिव गौर भक्त वृंद की जय। श्री श्री राधा कृष्ण गोप कुंड श्याम कुंड राधा कुंड गिरि गोवर्धन की जय। श्री श्री गौरांगी बेंगलोर ईश्वर भगवान की जय। श्री मायपुर धाम की जय। श्री वृंदावन धाम की जय। गंगा माई की जय। यमुना माई की जय। भक्ति देवी की जय। तुलसी देवी की जय। अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वंदे के श्री हरिनाम संकीर्तन की जय। ग्रंथराज श्रीमद् भागवतम की जय। ISKCON all glories to be assembled. All glories to be assembled. All glories to be assembled. All glories to Sri Guru and Sri Gaura to Sri Prabhupada ki jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Devim Saraswati Vyasam Tato Jayamrire Nashtaprayeshu Apatreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttamasloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtivi. Hare Krishna. Welcome you to the Srimad Bhagavatam class. Today we are discussing from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Chapter 13, Text 36 and Text 37. I'll read 36 of Bhagavad. Text 36. Mamali Amalambraha Hiranmayena Patrena Sittam Adaya Payasam. Translation Srila Prabhupada ki jai. As soon as the operation was offered, a person appeared from the water carrying a golden garland and a dress. He was carrying a golden pot filled with rice boiled in milk. Text 7. Savipranumato Raja Rita Gritva Jali Naudanam Avakraya Muda Yuktaha Savipranumato Raja Gritvan Jali Naudanam Avakraya Muda Yuktaha Radat Patnya Udharadihi Savipranumato Raja Gritvan Jali Naudanam Avakraya Muda Yuktaha Pradat Patnya Udharadihi. Translation Sri Prabhupada ki jai. The king was very liberal, and after taking permission from the priest, he took the preparation in his joint palms, and after smelling it, he offered a portion to his wife. The word Udaradihi is significant in this connection. The wife of King Sunita was not fit to accept this benediction, yet the king was so liberal that without hesitation he offered it to his wife. He offered to his wife the boiled rice in from the Purusha. Of course, everything is designed by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. I explained later since the king was very liberal, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, in order to increase his detachment from this material world, will that a cruel son be born of the queen, so that the king would have his home. As stated above, Lord Vishnu fulfills the desires of the karmis as they desire, but the Lord fulfills the desire of a devotee in a different way, so that the devotee may gradually come to him. This is confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita, Dadami Buddhi Yogam Tam Yenamam Payantite. The Lord gives the devotee the opportunity to make progress further and further, so that he may come back home to God. Om Akyanati Mirandasya Dhananjana Shakya Chakshmiltamina Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishnu Stapena Bhutale Swayam Mahyam Dadati Sva Padantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Shri Guru Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sakrajatam Sargana Raghunathanvitam Tam Shri Jivam Satvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padhan Sargana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha Ye Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagata Krishna Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namoste Tatakanchana Gauragi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishabhanushde Devi Mami Hari Priya Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kabhasalubhyascha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Moha Karvati Vachalam Pankam Nande Vigirim Padamaham. Shivaram Dhritarnam Paramandamad Shri Chaitanya Mishra. Om Vishpad Hare Krishna. So, 36. Now, King Anga, he did not have a son. So he performed a sacrifice whereby he could get a son, and he wanted a son who could take over the ruling of his kingdom when we retire to the forest for the purpose of self-realization. So this practice of the kings of the yesteryears could not sit in the throne lifetime, and as soon as it was time for them to retire to the forest purpose of self-realization, hand over the kingdom to their son and then leave to the forest. Rishabdeva. Rishabdeva, when he wanted to go to the forest, he told Bharata as the king, and he asked all the other remaining sons to obey the orders of Bharata, who would be in the king, and him ruling the kingdom. This was the practice of the yesteryears. Uh, there is a mention in the Vedas about these karma kanda activities. Have three different classes of activities. The Vedas have n number of verses, but the basic class three: karma kanda, jnana kanda, and upasana kanda. So the karma kanda section of the mentions about if you perform this activity, you will get this benefit. If you perform this activity, this demigod will be pleased, and they will give this benediction and so forth. There are many sections in the Karma Kanda section which give basically a lot of material benefits. The Jnana Kanda, on the other hand, gives a lot of knowledge, and the Upasana Kanda, which is not very much prominent in the Vedas, it basically gives information about the devotional service. But basically, it's mostly to Karma Kanda. So this sacrifice which King Anga was performing was a part of this Karmakanda section. And he wanted a son basically who can take up and he can go to the forest at the right moment. Now what happened was that as soon as the oblation was offered in the fire, the personality came from the fire. He was wearing a golden garland and white dress, etc. And he was carrying a golden pot filled with a sweet. Uh, must be something like very much like the sweet rice that we make with ingredients that is rice and milk. It was sweet preparation. So then it's a mention as to how the king was very liberal, and the priests who were performing the sacrifice and he offered a portion to his wife. So we will now discuss what are the implications of this sacrifice. Now, king's wife was named Sunita. Now, Sunita was the daughter of her father. And as for the qualities of his. So Sunita got the qualities of Mrityu. Uh, her son was Vena, and he got the qualities of the Sunita. So the point is that Vena was born with a lot of qualities from Sunita. So he was born as a very cruel king. This was the problem that happened in that sacrifice. Now, the king was very liberal in terms of handling his wife. Was has been made by the Lord himself with a particular purpose, which he also come to understand. So the queen became pregnant after she took the portion of the sacrifice. Of course, in Bhagavad Gita also, the Lord gives instruction in Arjuna in Bhagavad Gita chapter 2, text 42. He says, men of small knowledge are very much attached to the flowery words of the Vedas, which recommend various fruitive activities for elevation to heavenly planets, resultant good birth, power, and so forth. So one who, beside being desirous of sense gratification and opulent life, they say that there is nothing more than this. So that means uh, even during those days, people were getting used to developing attachment for these fruitive activities. But the main purpose of the heavenly planets, get a good birth or have a lot of power and so forth. Basically, it's an activity of sense gratification to lead in future an opulent life. And these classes of people, they feel that there is nothing beyond this. Of course, there is things much beyond this. That is going to the forest for the purpose of self-realization to perfect one's life so that he can go back to God, the kingdom of God, the Lord, Supreme Personality of Godhead. There is no, where there is no birth and death, and there are no three material miseries. So, in this arrangement was made by the Lord Himself with a particular purpose. Now, what happens is that generally, when one is in a grihastha life, one tends to develop a lot of attachment to his family members. Even if they are devotees of the Lord, there is a tendency to develop attachment to them. That attachment becomes an impediment to one's progress in the devotion service. At the same time, one can utilize the family members who are practicing devotion service in the devotion of Lord Krishna without any attachment. That is the most important thing, because the moment you are attached to a person, whether it's a wife or children, then again take birth in this material world again and get entangled. So this king, Anga, was very liberal by nature. He did not realize what would be the outcome of this future, because he was a liberal portion that came from sacrifice to his wife. It's generally practice. My wife shares amount of, I think it's 50% of the if he practices devotion. And the benefit of it. So the king considered, the king was a very liberal person. And, his wife would be benefited, but what happened was opposite happened. Next, we might do something with the intention of getting some benefit, but then what would happen is the result might be otherwise. I mentioned the previous class in the sacrifice, a lot of intricate uh, points, like the Brahmana should recite the mantra correctly, proper pronunciation. The ingredients have to be pure. Then all concerned guests have to be invited. I gave an example of how Daksha ignored Lord Shiva and calling Lord Shiva for the sacrifice, and there was a havoc in that sacrifice, and then which ended in a big battle between the followers of Lord Shiva and Daksha. So there are a lot of intricacies in the performance of a sacrifice, by which one has to be very careful. So in this case also, Anga was not aware of what is going to happen. He thought that he will have a son who will take over the kingdom so that he can go to the forest. What actually happened was that King Vena was born, who took the qualities of his mother Sunita. I mentioned a son carries the qualities of his mother, and a woman carries the qualities of her father. So, in turn, when he was born, he took the qualities of Mrityu personified also through his mother. So he became a very, very, very cruel king, and it was predicted this is what is going to happen. Now, uh, he became so cruel that he stopped all the sacrifices, a lot of brahmanas and all. He was harassing, killed many of them. Anka was a great devotee of the Lord, and a son like was not a good situation for him. Now, if you look at materially, to get a son was very auspicious for Anga, but then the other side of it was that Anga was not the right type of son that he wanted. So the point is that Anga developed detachment. The Lord actually knows every person in every possible way. So he knew that King Anga might become detached, even though he's a great devotee of the Lord. He might develop some attachment to his son. So the Lord, realizing this, gave a son like Vena, so that uh, Anga can develop detachment and then leave home for realization. So this is what actually happened. So what was planned did not happen. On the contrary, it was a problem for uh, the king because he had to leave home. But it was a good opportunity for him to leave home. Otherwise, it is said that he might have stayed back at home and developed some attachment for his wife or his son. The point is that Lord fulfills the desires of a devotee in a different way compared to an ordinary person like a karma kandi or a jnana kandi, etc. Those who follow karma kanda, jnana kanda, etc. The reason is that though the Lord is equal to everyone, he is the devotees are more dear to the Lord than anybody else. So the Lord is always looking at the opportunity for how a devotee can progress in such a way that devotee can come back home, back to Godhead. So, but there is also a mention in Shastras that a devotee should not desire any material benediction because many times the opposite happens, like in this case. Devotee should always consider that whatever has been given to him by the Lord is the Lord mercy itself. He should be satisfied with the situation he is placed in and should not seek any. Now the Lord also fulfills the desires of karmis also. Karmis material benedictions. So the Lord gives them whatever they want. Many worship the demigods and perform sacrifices for demigods, not realizing that the supreme enjoyer is the supreme Lord Krishna himself. So in this case, we see that though Anga was a great devotee of the Lord, he wanted a material benediction, but though he had a spiritual desire for that, the opposite was same because he gave a portion of the uh, remnants of the sacrifice to his wife Sunita. That was what happened. If he had not given that portion of that sacrifice to his wife, maybe he would have got a good son, but then he could also develop attachment. Now, we'll look at some of the examples and some of the quotes. Now, Chanakya Pandita is one who gives a lot of quotes, and Srila Prabhupada always mentions about quotes from Chanakya Pandita's this thing in many of his classes. Only man has no son, then that means if there is no son in the family, it's like a desert. At the same time, Srila Prabhupada also quotes in the sixth canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, where he says, what is the use of a son who is neither a learned scholar nor a devotee? Such a son is like a blind, diseased eye, which always causes suffering. That means uh, one might look at a contradiction, but then it is not so because we must understand the right perspective. The son is always required for in a family life, particularly Grihastha life, because uh, the women can't offer oblation sacrifice. Only a son can offer. So when a good son is born, if he is a devotee of the Lord, there is no issue at all because the devotee delivers uh, not only himself but also the kingdom, the citizens, and everyone. But if there is a bad son, like King Vena, then the example is that the son is like a blind, diseased eye, which always causes suffering. So that is how King Vena, we're not going into details of his this thing, but then he became a cause of suffering not only for himself, but for the society as a whole. And the output was that King Anga left for the forest immediately for self-realization, thinking that it would be more of a burden for him being in the kingdom. We look at some of the examples of sons who have been devotees of the Lord and how they have helped. Now, one example is about Srinivas Pandita. Uh, uh, he was one of the associates of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu used to perform kirtan pastimes in Srinivas Pandita's house. And at night, they would have kirtan, which would go on throughout the night. Now, it so happened that in one of the occasions, he was at a in the midst of the kirtan. So the women and all who are there, his wife, including his wife, they were all under severe grief because they lost their son. He had some disease, and so he left the body. Now, the women are generally considered to be very, very emotional in nature. So his wife had a lot of attachment for the son whom they lost, and she was grieving, and they were all crying. And there were a lot of other women also who were all crying. Now, in the case of Srinivas, actually, the house had a courtyard outside where Mahaprabhu was doing the kirtan, and all the devotees were uh, absorbed the kirtan. Uh, Now, Srinivas was a great devotee of the Lord. So it so happened when the women were grieving, Srinivas went inside the house. He realized that something was going wrong, and he saw all the women crying. So he went inside and told that this moment is so auspicious that it is sure this boy has achieved success because he has completed his journey in this body and he's going to go back to the spiritual world. So what is the reason to be lamenting on this? And he further said that his good fortune is definitely assured. I can understand this because I have played in this. Uh, I realized this that his boy is going to be successful. Then he told them that if you can't control your emotions because of your family affection to the boy, don't cry now. You can cry later. So he said that the Supreme Lord Gaurav Mahaprabhu is himself Sankirtana, accompanied by all the devotees in his house. And if due to your crying, the happiness that they are all experiencing by dancing in ecstasy, they will be disturbed. And then it's a matter of time. And if happens, then I will jump into the Ganges and give up my life. So he said that not a blade of grass moves without Krishna's will. So when he tried to console, then he further said that Krishna is the one who gives life and Krishna is the one who takes it away also. And Krishna is the one who maintains and protects everyone. So he gives on his own free will and he takes someone on his own free will. This way he tried to convince all the women there in the house and they all gave up their lamentation. And he suggested that you just hear Krishna's name and go through this difficulty with feeling some happiness. Your desires will actually be fulfilled. So after giving all this instruction to those who were present, Srinivas again went outside of his house in the courtyard to join Mahaprabhu in the chanting and temple. Now, the men were there inside, they were hearing the Kirtan of Mahaprabhu. Kirtan was going on, and all of a sudden, Mahaprabhu spoke to Srinivas. He said, I feel some tribulation, I feel some disturb. I think some sad event has occurred in your house. So Srivas Pandita replied, what possible happiness can happen when you are yourself presently here, present in this house? There cannot be anything unforeseen. Then Mahaprabhu said, Srivas, why I was not feeling any bliss in the kirtan today? Because many times, some more occasions have happened where Mahaprabhu was not feeling that happiness. But here, Mahaprabhu being the Supreme Lord, he knew what was happening, but he wanted to instigate us to come up with the truth. Srivas Prabhu answered, my Lord, you are yourself auspicious. wherever you are present, there cannot be any sorrow. But then what happened was that Shiva was trying to cover this incident from Mahaprabhu. But there were so many other devotees, they informed the Lord that Shiva's son had passed away. So when Mahaprabhu heard this, he became very, very uh, grief-stricken, and he told Shiva what a tragic event has happened. Then he told Shiva, why didn't you tell me of this unfortunate news before? And Shiva's Pandita replied, I couldn't tolerate disturbing you while you were enjoying the kirtan. So this was mood. I didn't want to disturb the kirtan because you were in that mood. And if one of my son dies, what sorrow is there for me? If we all die while seeing you, it's a matter of great happiness. So what can there be any better than a situation than that? Then he said, on the other hand, if you would have to stop dancing, perhaps I would have died. So this was Shiva's mood. That means if he had been the past presence of my Lord, this was the danger that I feared, and thus I didn't tell you at that time. So seeing Shiva's Pandita's mood of devotion, Mahaprabhu replied, how can I give up such a company as this? So with tears in his eyes, Mahaprabhu said, due to love for me, you didn't even feel lamentation at the death of your son. Personality like you. Then the Lord also started to cry, and the devotees began to worry about what is going to happen next. Then Mahaprabhu came inside where the dead body of the boy was lying, and touching the boy, Mahaprabhu told the boy, he was speaking to the boy was dead, but Mahaprabhu is the supreme personality of Godhead himself. So he said, why are you going away and leaving this house of Shiva Pandita? Then as soon as Mahaprabhu asked this question, the dead child came back to life at the touch of Mahaprabhu's hand. Then he offered obeisances to the Lord. He replied, O Prabhu, whatever you ordain is absolute. No one can do anything what is sanctioned. No one can do anything what is sanctioned by you. As many days I was destined to remain here, that many days I've stayed. That many days then he said, I have. Then he said uh, that my time has passed. I've decided. I have proceeded to leave this house. He said that you are the absolute. I have stayed here so far. Now the time has come. I have taken birth and died, but this time of my death, I actually I taken darshan of your beautiful face. So this is how uh, the boy replied that since you are present, I have died happily. Then Mahaprabhu, the boy again left his body. So when everyone was present there, they heard of the words of this dead boy, and they all came out of the grief, and they all again came back to their bliss because they realized that the boy has gone back to Godhead. So Mahaprabhu then told him, since told Shiva's Pandita, since me and Nityananda Prabhu are you consider me and Nityananda Prabhu as your own sons, as your own sons. So please don't feel any more distress in your mind over the loss of whatever has happened. Hearing the compassionate voice of the Lord, then devotees were all cheerful, came back to cheerful mood. They lost the grief which was there before. So this is how Shiva's Pandita, in fact, quoted from Shastras and told Mahaprabhu also this is the reason that he did not have grief for his son. But Mahaprabhu felt very much compassionate to Shiva's Pandita because of his devotion to the Lord. So this is one pastime where a devotee of the Lord considers every opportunity as whatever has happened to be the Lord's mercy. There is one more pastime in Srimad Bhagavatam. You might have heard, I'll narrate the pastime. There was a great king called Chitraketu. He was a great king, and it is said that during his time, uh, all the cranes, everything was actually were all in abundance. They said that he had about 10 million wives, I mean, beyond our imagination. But then, though he had 10 million wives, didn't have even a single child. So because of that, he was always under grief. Like I mentioned that always a king desires a son who can deliver the forefathers also. But sometimes the Lord has his own arrangements, like we see in the case of King Anga. So Chitraketu was always under grief. And one day when he was under grief situation, Angira Rishi passed by his house and he stopped by in King Chitraketu's palace. Chitraketu immediately offered all the obeisances to the Rishi, knowing that he was a great personality, offered him water, tables, and this way he received the guest very properly. Then asked the king, this was the practice in the Esther years. Rishi asked him, my dear king, I hope that your body and mind and your royal associates and paraphernalia are all going well. So then he mentions a point which is very important. He said, when the seven properties of material nature, that means the material energy, the ego, and the five objects of sense gratification are in proper order, the living entity within the material element is happy. These are in proper order. That is the senses, material energy, ego, everything is proper order. Everyone should be happy. Then he said, without these seven elements, one cannot exist. Similarly, he said, a king is always protected by seven elements. These are different from the previous ones. He said, king is protected by seven elements, that is one's guru, the king's ministers, his kingdom, his fort, his treasury, his royal order, and his friends. Then he said, O King Chitraketu, I can observe that your mind is not least. You seem not to have achieved this desired goal in life. It is because of you yourself, or has been caused by others. Face looked very pale. So Angira, she realized what was the king inquiring about, and he wanted to express that he was having the grief because of not having a sin, having a son. Uh, Angira, she also understood. Then she replied uh, uh, that whatever has happened is by the will of the Lord. Uh, I can give a benediction for you to have a son, because the king was literally pleading the rishi to have the benediction. So she said that I can give you a benediction of a son, but then the son need not be one who can give you all this happiness. A son can also be a cause of lamentation. Also, so he sacrificed and he offered sweet rice to one of the rishis, and he offered the remnants of his food offered in the yajna to Anga Rishi. And Anga Rishi gave, like in this case, we see that Anga gave a part of his remnants to his wife Sunika. Anga Rishi also gave a part of this thing to one of the queens called Kritadyuti. So after this, Kritadyuti became pregnant and she gave birth to a son. And when the son was born, the happiness in the king also very, very happy. But then what was happening was, uh, king had a lot of attachment for this one wife who had given the son. And in the process, he lost his attention to the other wives. And because of his attachment to his own son and the wife who delivered the son. The other wives of Chitraketu, they all became very envious because they lost interest in them and was not giving time and attention to them. So one day they gave a poison to his son and they killed him. Now, first, when the son was dead, his, the mother, that is Kritadyuti, did not realize the son has died. Then maid servants and all came and said that the son has died. So when they she started praying a lot. Then seeing this, Chitraketu was also under grief because when the sacrifice was performed, it is said that the king gave as much as 60 crores of cows uh, and many elephants and horses and elephants just in charity to the Brahmanas. So he thought that when he has performed such a high sacrifice and a good son was born, what reason could be there for his son to be because he had taken so much care of both his wife and his son, he had that attachment for that. So when his son was lost, he was under a lot of grief. Again, before he was in grief because he didn't have a son. This son so happened that when he was in severe grief, she came back again to the same palace along with Narada Muni. And they saw that Tirtha was under severe grief. Now, when they came, Chitraketu immediately approached Angir Rishi and said that I've lost my dear son and he's not getting up. What could be the reason and what could be done? So Angir Rishi supplied lamentation, and your son is like a dead body on the side, and you are lying at the side of your dead son. So Narada and Angirisha, they gave instructions on spiritual knowledge. They said, "O king, what relation do you have with the dead body for which you are lamenting? And what relationship do you have with him? You say that you are related as a father and he is your son, but it doesn't exist now. Nor will it exist in the future because just like small particle is giving an example. I said just as small particles of sand sometimes gather together, sometimes disperse. This is also given in Srimad Bhagavatam. The ways of material energy, sometimes people are brought together by the Lord, by arrangement of the Lord, and sometimes people are separated by the force of time. This is himself. So when seeds are grown in the ground, they sometimes grow into plants. Sometimes the ground is not fertile, so the seeds may not fructify into plants. So similarly, he said that a prospective father, being imbibed by the potency of the Lord, can beget a child, but sometimes the conception does not take place. So therefore, one should not lament over the ultimate good. Everything is under the control of nature. Then Chitraketu became enlightened with the instructions of Narad Muni and Angir Rishi, and the king got enlightened. He spoke to both of them that you both have come like Avadhutas to my house, and I see you have given me so much knowledge that I have understood the real truth. The point is that after hearing this, the king overcame this lamentation. He said, uh, Angir Rishi, in fact, said, when I came here first time, you wanted, uh, I'm the Angir Rishi when you have lost your son.